for coming. We are really excited to do this, Holly and I, but before we even begin, we want to say thank you to A Small World for inviting us in to do this presentation, and specifically Anastasia, who has been so supportive and so wonderful and is virtually holding our hand, even though she's not here for you to see her. And I have to have a big shout out to my friend Sunny, because it was Sunny who introduced me to A Small World. So before we kick off, I want to introduce you to Chef Holly Chute, who is our guest chef host for this broadcast. And since I can't see somehow the comments, Holly's also going to be our comment person. So if you have any questions, just add them to comments, and it's Holly's responsibility to answer them, or at least to present them so that we can have a discussion. This webinar is going to be a little bit different than others that you might have seen. What Holly and I want to do is make it a conversation between us and you. So feel free to drop a comment, feel free to answer or ask a question as you're going along, as we're going along, and we'll see if we can make it as interactive as possible. But before we go on, let me introduce you to Holly Chute. Holly has an amazing background, and when I was putting this together, I was thinking I really needed a chef who had some real life experience, who could come in and talk about certain things that I didn't have experience with. And Holly came up, and she's the perfect person for this. She's a background working with farmers and ranchers and restaurateurs and chefs. She started her career as the executive chef, is that the right title, Holly? For the Georgia Governor's Mansion, where she worked with politicians and foodpreneurs, and just, I mean, I figure anyone who can work with a politician has got to have this relationship marketing stuff down pat. So from there, Holly moved to the Georgia Department of Agriculture, where she is executive chef of a very innovative program called Georgia Grown, where she supports the farmers and the foodpreneurs and the restaurants and chefs and anything that touches Georgia grown food. And she is also the past president of the Atlanta chapter of Les Dames d'Escoffier, which is where I met Holly. So please give a big virtual applause welcome to my dear friend, Holly Chute. And thank you so much, Holly, for being on this virtual journey with me.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your kind words, Toby. And now I'd like to introduce Toby Bloomberg. She has her own company, Bloomberg Marketing, which specializes in social media and brand awareness through storytelling and education. She's the co-founder of Diva Foodies, which specializes in the food industry. She develops campaigns and marketing platforms for chefs, restaurants, catering companies, and all things culinary. She's a tireless advocate for small businesses and what she has coined, which she has said already today, foodpreneurs, which I just love that term. She is also a proud member of Les Dames d'Escoffier International, which is a philanthropic organization of women in culinary, excuse me, in the culinary industry, supporting women pursuing careers in food, farming, wine, spirits, anything culinary, culinary PR, culinary marketing, and anything hospitality. Her resume is wide-ranged and that of an extremely talented and successful woman, and I am proud to call her my friend.
Oh, thank you, Holly. Well, now that we've had this done, let's move on to the next slide. Perhaps, perhaps not. I don't know. All right, let's see. Here we go. So let me just tell you a little bit of background. I had written an article, and I'll post this after the chat, about what we're calling the new foodie. And the new foodie to us is not somebody that is necessarily only driven by going to restaurants that have white tables. The new foodie takes a broad brush look at food. And I love this little quote from Nigel Lawson that says, "Cooking like life is an experimental art." So on the bottom, you see what we call our 7 stops, and each one of these stops travels very well. So we are talking about home cooks, restaurants, farms and ranches, food festivals and food tours, farmers markets, distillery, cooking classes and cookbook and food TV, which is really the learning aspect of it. And somebody said, well, where's the wine? Where's the vineyards? And so we're putting that under farms and ranches because, you know, vineyards really are farms. The time that we were given is about an hour, and we knew that we couldn't cover everything. So we've decided to focus on home cooks, restaurants, farms and ranches, and a little bit of farmers markets. And let's kick this off with our home cooks. If any of you have seen the CNN program, Searching for Italy, where Stanley Tucci goes through the Italian countryside and goes into the homes of many cooks and has the privilege of cooking and tasting. This came from that show. And so it touched my heart. And he said, it's always a real privilege learning a family's home recipes in their kitchen secrets. So with that, let's take a little dive into home cooks. We'll talk about the influence of COVID and we'll talk about trends. But before we even go on, I want you to pay a little bit of attention to the graphics. These graphics were kindly shared with us by ASMALLWORLD members. So these are specifically home cooks, and you can see a poke bowl and avocado toasts. And I love the one on the bottom from Pauline. She shows the entire process of her meal. And I'm going to kick this back to Holly to talk about the influence of COVID.
Okay, I have seen a real change in home cooks through COVID, as I'm sure many of you have, from baking sourdough bread, start making your own starters, to just cooking more at home. And one of the things that I have found is really important, and what it has done is it's caused families to cook more together, and which in turn helps preserve family heirloom recipes. You're teaching your children the things that your mother taught you, and it ends up preserving heirloom recipes and family secrets from way back. And if it weren't for this pandemic, a lot of that would have gone by the wayside. So it's really important that, and it's a silver lining, that we have had this opportunity to spend more time.
So I'm wondering if
and understand our heritage and our families.
So I'm wondering if this trend, Holly, will continue with people going back to work and so busy again. Do you have a sense if families will continue cooking together? I mean, it's such, first of all, it's such a great family activity.
I think it will, because number one, people are going back to work, but a lot of them are still working from home. So they can plan their day while they're at home. And now with all the food delivery, grocery delivery services, it makes it easy on homemakers and families to get their food without having to take time out of their day to shop. And, you know, now that they've got their family started on eating home cooked food, I think it'll definitely continue.
What do you think about those companies that have what we call a meal in a box, where everything is all cut up and you put it together? I mean, from your point of view as a professional chef, is that a good thing?
I think it's a great idea. I know there's been a variety of success with it. Some have been very successful, some not so much. I think it's a great shortcut for people that are busy, but ultimately I prefer I find cutting up my own food and prepping it therapy. So it's just a matter of personal preference, I guess.
I wonder how many people who are listening have used those box companies. If you have, just raise your hand or let us know in chat. The other thing, Holly, that makes me a little sad is that I understand that moms have limited time, and this really shortcuts it and gives a family an opportunity to cook together. But they're missing the experience of shopping. They're missing the experience perhaps of going to a farmer's market. We'll talk more about that later, or even to the grocery store. There's so many different kinds of grocery stores now. I remember as a little girl, my mother, before I went off to college and got my own apartment, my mother took me grocery shopping, and I had been obviously shopping with her before, but she actually pointed things out to me, and she said, this is how you pick out a roast. It has to have marbling, and this is how you do that, and look for this when you're looking at ingredients, and the first ones in the ingredient chain on a can means that's the most ingredient. So I'm wondering if people are not going into that direction of grocery shopping experience.
I think that's true, but also we've got a generation of tech savvy people that go to YouTube and Google for all their information. So if they're interested in cooking, they're going to watch a recipe on YouTube, and they're going to learn how to pick out cuts of meat and produce. So you're not learning it from your mom, but at least you still have access to that information.
Excellent point. Let's talk a little bit more about heirloom food and sharing and saving of recipes. So here we have in the very middle is our friend Sunny, and Sunny has done something really sweet during the pandemic. She's made a very special soup and has given it to members of her community, of her neighborhood, and you can see their names on the top of it. I wish I lived closer to Sunny. I would love some of Sunny's soup. And then on the right-hand side is Justin, and he shows what he is cooking as a favorite stir fry. And then on the left side is my Nana's poppy seed cookies. And there's the recipe right there. The interesting thing, and my family with my cousins showing Nana's cookies. The interesting thing about Nana's cookies is that my cousins don't bake them, but it's my cousin's husband who is the cook in our family, and Rich bakes Nana's cookies. So even though it's not a direct blood relationship, it still is family, and the little children still get to enjoy them. So the heirloom continues. And Holly, you and I were talking about ways to share and save family recipes.
Yeah, I think as our families, as our parents age, even if you can't get the written recipe, if you can follow them or have them record it, or just stand by their side and you record it, it's really important to preserve that. I also have a comment here from Sunny saying that COVID also got people obsessed with growing plants and herbs, at least here in New York City. My friends and I have started growing basil, and we just use that basil for our cooking. We go to the farmer's market now to buy herbs to plant on our fire escapes. So I think that's very creative. And it brings people together. Sharing herbs from your fire escape.
It does, and Sunny's posted several of her plants, her fireplace plant, on her social media channels. Are really quite fun, and actually it's very inspirational. Sunny, I won't show you my herb garden because it's all a bunch of weeds. But Holly, do you have an herb garden?
I do. I have a couple of planter boxes on my deck, and I just planted a tower garden with a bunch of lettuces and tomatoes and some herbs on that too.
Excellent.
I do not enjoy gardening. I like the fruits of the labor, but I don't enjoy it. So this tower garden is really simple. It's all aquaponics and very little care. You put nutrients in water, and a pump pumps the water up through the little pods and feeds them, and they grow. It's pretty cool.
And you're telling me that you weren't high tech. That's about the most high tech thing I've heard in ages.
All I had to do was plug it in.
And speaking of saving and sharing, obviously computers are great ways to save your recipes. Even little cards, little index cards to put them together. I have my mother's recipe box, and what's really quite charming about going through her recipes is not even necessarily the recipes, but seeing her handwriting. My mom died a couple of years ago, and seeing her handwriting and that she took the time to write these recipes makes them extra, extra special. We wanted to show you what one man was doing during COVID. So this Marshall Goldman is from Knoxville, and apparently Marshall was quite the home cook. And one of the things that he was known for among his friends was bagel making. And you can see Marshall with his son baking bagels. And of course, the real way to do it is to make the dough right, and then to put them in boiling water, and then to put them in a wood stove, and so forth and so on. And so Marshall started making these great bagels, and his friends wanted them, and a lot of stores were closed, so he decided that he would do it. Well, one thing led to another, and as you see, he started a business. So another silver lining, Holly, of the pandemic is that a lot of people have taken their family's recipes or their passion for food and turned it into a business that hopefully will be long-lived.
And also, I think that with time on their hands, people have been able to realize their dreams. If they've thought about a career in the food industry, it's given them time to work on it at home and develop it so that once they could get out in public again, they were able to follow their dream and launch it. They could do all the research and experimentation on their off time while they were not working. And then once it opened up again, then they're ready to go.
And they have a set group of customers that they've already cultivated who know, trust, and love them and their food. So they've got a great start. Let's take a dive into restaurants. And Chef David Chang reminds us, he says, to eat well, I always disagree with critics who say that all restaurants should be fine dining. You can get a Michelin star if you serve the best hamburger in the world. And that's true. So today, restaurants are not necessarily white-tabled, but I mean, think about it. Some of the street food restaurants in the East have gotten Michelin stars. We have food trucks that are running around our cities that came into our neighborhoods during the pandemic when other restaurants were closed. Bar pub food, one of my favorites. Here in the South, obviously barbecue joints, and that's what they're called, barbecue joints. So here you see, before we dive into this topic, here you see again some more of our Small World friends who kindly shared with us some of the restaurants that they've been and the photos that they've taken, from Kenya to Vietnam to Germany, and Sunny's photo in the United States, New York. Very, very exciting to see all these amazing food dishes, and even more so, make a note of this, because if you're ever in one of these countries, here's the start of your restaurant list. So Holly, you've worked with so many chefs and so many restaurants in your career. Can you talk a little bit about the role of restaurants as they serve the community? They're more than just serving food.
Absolutely. And I think this is another thing that's come through the pandemic is restaurants have developed community, and people have become loyal to their restaurants, knowing that now more than ever they need them, that they were closed for several months and with no income. And then once they figured out a way to do curbside pickup or delivery, the neighbors really rallied around the restaurants to help them survive. And I think it's created a long-lasting thing. I don't think now that the pandemic is slowing down that people are going to stop supporting their restaurants. I think they realized that, you know, they're a vital part of their neighborhood and that they need to continue supporting them.
I always remember the song from Cheers, where everybody knows your name. And I went to school in Boston, and actually Cheers was just down the street
Yep.
of the college that I went to. So yeah, where everybody knows your name, it at least makes you feel comfortable and happy to be there. And so that said, the dining models themselves and the impacts of chefs and customers, I think that's changed a little bit too during this pandemic. It used to be going into a restaurant was enough, but what do we expect now, and how has that changed, do you think?
I think just people still are craving good food that they can't get at home. So they're adapting. If they have to sit on a patio instead of going inside, you know, they can do that. And I think, you know, we've created our own little pods, people we feel comfortable being around. And so you take that group to the restaurant and you still share the food and enjoy the food and have conversation over the food. So I don't think that's going anywhere.
And what about the impact that, this sounds a little strange, but of the promotion of the cleanliness, the safety of the restaurant? I mean, chefs probably were the cleanest people, because how many times do you have to wash your hands during the course of preparing a dish? But now people understand that, and they understand that because it's been promoted, that they don't have to necessarily worry about that. Do you think that promotion should still continue?
Oh, absolutely. And I think restaurants are one of the prime examples. You know, they get visited by the health department, and chefs are constantly wiping down surfaces in the kitchen and at the tables in between customers. So I don't think that's going anywhere. It just makes people more aware that it is being done and has been done. And people are more educated now about it.
Yeah. Anybody out there want to chime in about the restaurants, perhaps in your neighborhood, and how you have had a closer relationship, or maybe you've missed something and now that they're opening up and can't wait to go in and hug a chef? Maybe that should be our next our next campaign, Holly, is hug a chef. If you're vaccinated and if you're well, hug a chef. Okay, here's something that I think we really are excited about talking about, and this is restaurants with food and travel. And again, let me bring your attention to the amazing photos that our Small World friends have shared with us. And we see restaurants here in Spain. Anastasia shared one of her favorites, which is Japanese fusion. And here is the Sail Harbor in Nigeria, which really is a resort. And what we love about this is that they're using mangoes to make this amazing frozen mango drink, which I really wish I had right now. And then we welcomed Adam Bell at the top of the show. And this is Adam's, one of Adam's posts from his Instagram page. And the chef is making an amazing pizza. So pizza and a mango drink, I could go with that right now.
It certainly is hot enough here for a mango drink.
Absolutely. One of the things that I want to just say at the top of this particular concept is that people share for so many different reasons, but your photographs don't have to be what the internet is calling porn photo perfect. As long as it's something that you want to share and you tag it with a story, with a little bit of why you're doing that. So on Sail Harbor, he said we'd be sharing a farm favorite, an easy frozen mango. And Adam talks about the finished product from this particular restaurant. So we have a little bit of the backstory here. And that's all you need. I mean, unless you're going to be a photographer, or unless you choose to be some sort of a food blogger influencer whose photos have to be picture perfect, don't worry about it. Don't worry if they're a little blurred, as long as you're sharing something that you love with your family and friends. That's really what they want. And Holly, what's your take about food and travel?
I don't think we're ever going to stop traveling to find food. And I think I go back to the pods, because I think people are going to be less comfortable going on the large tour groups. And I think people have grown in their discernment for food, that they don't want to be marched through the quote unquote Italian restaurant where they're just getting fed mass food to whoever's on the tour bus. I think we'll continue traveling, but we'll do it in smaller groups where we can actually taste the food of the region that we're visiting. So I don't think travel is ever going to stop.
I agree with you. And one of the things that I really particularly love, and this sort of dovetails into economic development, is the way that some people call it food tourism, some people call it culinary tourism. When I was in Greece last year, to 2020, I get really confused. Just before the pandemic shut everything down, I was really lucky that I went. I decided to make my time in Athens and in the islands a food tour. So I did something that I had never done before. I actually signed up for a walking tour, a food tour of Greece, well, of Athens specifically. And this woman took me around, and it was a very tiny group. So we got to see things that I normally wouldn't have even known about, and taking us into different areas of the city that I normally wouldn't have thought about going. And of course, we got an opportunity to taste so many delicious, delicious things. We went to the very first bakery that opened in Athens. It was so much fun. And then the other thing that I did, Holly, is I took a cooking class. And so between the cooking class and my food walking tour of Athens, I felt like I had seen a little bit more of the country and the culture especially than I would have even just wandering the streets by myself.
You mentioned cooking classes. I spent my junior year of college in Paris and took some cooking classes while I was there, and lived with a family. The woman was a very good cook and took the time to teach me and cook things that were different so that I could be exposed to it. And by the time I finished my junior year, I had decided that I wanted to pursue a career in culinary. So I came back to the United States, finished college, and then went to the Culinary Institute of America to pursue a degree in culinary.
So you were really influenced by a home cook.
So cooking classes are a great way to engage, for sure.
Yeah. Anybody else want to drop a note in the chat and tell us where you've been traveling and the food that particularly made an impact on you?
Well, Sunny, Toby, Sunny has said that she's bombarded you with her food photos for years.
It's been great fun. And I'm so jealous when I see all of that fabulous food from the Philippines and from New York. And Sunny, I wish you were next door. I would run over right now and we'd go exploring the East Village. So yeah, all right. So this quote from a farmer really talked to me, Holly. She said, "My grandfather used to say that once in your life, or at least once in your life, you need a doctor, a lawyer, a policeman, and a preacher, but every day, 3 times a day, sometimes a little bit more, you need a farmer." So let's dive into something that I know is very near and dear to your heart: farms, ranches, and farmers markets.
Yeah, Juan is saying that that is absolutely true. And it is. It's, you know, we have to thank our farmers for everything. And they have struggled in this past year, losing the restaurant and school and offices. There are so many places that they would provide food for that they lost their business. But one of the things we did here in Georgia through Georgia Grown is we set up these Georgia Grown to go, and farmers would come and we pack variety boxes and also offer produce by the case, and people could order in advance or buy on site. And it would be totally a drive-through experience where they would pay ahead of time and we'd have the order and we'd load it in their car and then they just continue driving through. And it was so successful for our farmers that they're looking for us to do it again for them this year, even though the schools and restaurants have opened back up. So, and farmers markets have been really important. I know the farmers market that I frequent, fortunately, never closed down during the pandemic. They established a protocol right from the beginning and had one way in, one way out, sanitize in, sanitize out, had taped off in the parking lot, 6 feet distances, and masks were required. But it helped the small farmers, and it helped the people that were cooking at home have available good food, good organic local produce available.
And we wanted to mention agritourism. We talked about culinary and food tourism. This is a little bit different. This is where farmers actually open their farms, their working farms, to the general public. And some of them have put together shops where they sell their food and their produce, and the food that they make from their produce, like ciders and vinegars. And then some others actually have playgrounds and little farms for children to enjoy. I had the amazing experience a couple of years ago to tour several farms as part of an agritourism group. And one of the things that I learned was some of these farmers, Holly, are doing this so well, they're so savvy at it, but other ones seem to be throwing spaghetti at the wall. It was like, okay, I don't know if my farm's going to make it to the next season, so maybe I can bring in some tourists and they can see what we do, and I can learn and from them, and I can educate them. So I just want to bring your attention that I'm sure in your area there are farms that have opened their doors to tourism, to local people. And I would encourage you to take a look at that and bring your family. It's a fabulous family opportunity. And especially since it's outdoors, right now, it's a great way to do that.
And Sunny has just said that she's done several agritourism events before, and they opened up an orchard where visitors can pick their own fruits and pay for it after. We have a lot of that in Georgia. Pick your own blueberries, strawberries, apples. It runs the gamut, but agritourism is very popular in Georgia, and we support it through Georgia Grown. We give classes on how to make it successful. We work very closely with the Georgia Department of Economic Development to assist these farmers and the best way to do it and how to promote it. And we put out a guide every year. So, get in touch with your local departments of agriculture and find out, what tools are available and who's doing agritourism events, and promote it in your schools. Get the schools to take tours with the children so that they get exposed at a young age to how food is created, and not that potatoes are not just French fries, that they actually come from a potato that's grown out of the ground, not from a bag of frozen food. So yeah, it's important to teach the kids at a young age so that they learn where real food comes from.
And then bringing it back to our foodie experience, it travels well. And by that I mean there's agritourism probably in just about every country that you're going to visit. So wouldn't it be fun to visit an olive farm? Or wouldn't it be fun to visit a farm that's making cheese? I would like to do that.
And I think people more and more are looking for experiential things to do, not just tourist traps and seeing all the monuments and churches and the history, but also having stuff that they can experience and remember for years, and then take back what they learned and practice the practices in their own kitchens.
Exactly. And great photo opportunities that you can post.
And share with Toby.
And share with me. And memories, great memories. So our time is sort of coming to an end, and we wanted to make sure that we saved a little bit of time for some Q&A. My friend William Poole posted this last Thanksgiving. I had asked some of my chef friends if they would give me a recipe that they used, and I would promote it. I would put it on our website. And William reminds us that at the end of the day or the beginning of the meal, it's really about creating and reliving the memories of food, friends, and families. And as you see here, his recipe is from Betty Crocker. It's nothing gourmet, although he is an extremely talented chef and chocolatier. But it tugs on his heartstrings to make this particular recipe every year. And so we wanted to, again, remind you that our foodie journey, from home cooks to restaurants, to farms and ranchers, to food festivals, food farmers markets, distilleries, and then our learning experience, it just doesn't begin and end at white table dining. And I'm going to toss this back to Holly, because this, as we were putting this presentation together for you, what we realized is that the foodie experience is more than just enjoying food or learning about farming or even the home cook experience. It really impacts the local economy and the developmental growth of small businesses and small farms. Holly?
Yeah, I mean, it's so important to the economy of our local communities, the state, our countries, to find out, where your food comes from, support the small farmers as well as the large farmers, and support local chefs, because this photo right here is a photo of Deborah Van Treese, who is an incredible local chef. She is an advocate for local food, and she puts a twist on soul food. So she takes current ingredients and spins them from soul food recipes. We also, I'm reading here something, Juan is saying that he understands the drive for organic produce, coffees and fruits, but one issue is that currently it is more expensive. And what do we think about that? And, I totally understand this. And when I was the chef at the governor's mansion, there was no way I could afford to buy organic produce. We had a very small budget at the governor's mansion. And over the 20 plus years that I was there, the budget never changed. So we never got an increase for inflation or anything. So we were not able to use organically grown produce. We did sometimes get stuff donated. We grew some stuff in our own garden, but you do the best you can. When you can afford organic and sustainably grown, then that's great. But if you can't, then don't feel guilty about it. You do the best you can. And if it's not organic, if you can do local, that you're still supporting the economy. So don't beat yourself up if you're not being as sustainable or eating as organically as you should. Just try and source as locally as you can and support your community.
Holly, it looks like we have a couple of questions.
Juan is saying that would like to get in touch with Toby and Chef Holly. WhatsApp, he's leaving his contact info. So I believe, Toby, did you include our?
Yes, it's in the last slide, which is the next one coming up. But before we leave this slide, let me just bring your attention to what we're calling the new retail stores. This is a little store in a town just north of Atlanta called Duluth, Georgia. And what this woman decided to do was to bring together food makers, foodpreneurs that perhaps sell online, sell at farmers markets, and give them another outlet, another retail outlet. And you can see here that the store is absolutely beautiful. So you can't really see the products here, but she also brings in local farmers as another way for them to sell their produce. And I can't leave this slide without mentioning my little cousin Hope, who, when she took this picture, was about 3 or 4 years old. And here she is eating cupcakes that she and her mom made together. And needless to say, we bring that back to home cooks. So from farm and ranchers to chefs who are actually cooking at farmers markets, new retail stores, to home cooks, no matter their age. Our new foodie journey really touches on so many interesting and fun places. And here is our last slide. Here's our contact information. We will send this to Anastasia, or if you want it, leave a message for us or email us, and we're happy to send you the deck. Any last questions? Any last comments for us from anybody?
Well, while we're waiting for questions or comments, another area of economic development is I know that in Atlanta that they have started to look at some of the rules, regulations, and laws surrounding food and alcohol, and loosened up a lot of the restrictions and allowed people to buy bottles of wine and cocktails when they go pick up their to-go orders. And this helped our restaurants a lot because they had all this inventory and all these bills, but no way to sell it. So they were able to sell wine by the bottle to their guests that were picking up food. And now they've taken it another step further where they've allowed the restaurants to create cocktails to go as long as they were in a sealed vessel when they left the restaurant. So it's giving bartenders and mixologists the opportunity to still share their creations with people to be paired with the food that they're buying. So the chefs can still create a wine pairing with the meals that they're sending out and make suggestions, and then people can opt in or opt out of adding that wine pairing or cocktail pairing to the menu.
So anybody want to share one of their food stories with us before we say goodbye, before we end this? Holly, why don't you start? We have a couple of minutes left, and maybe Sunny will drop something as well. So I know that you have lots of food stories. And the one in Paris, I can hardly wait to meet you for a drink for you to tell me more about that time.
I'm sorry, you froze on that one. Can you repeat that, please?
I said I can hardly wait to meet you, perhaps for a drink outdoors someplace, so you can tell me more about your Paris stories.
Yes.
When was the first time you really realized you had this aha moment that food was more than just sitting at your dining table with your mom and your family, that it was maybe something different and a little special? When was that moment? Do you remember?
Well, food was always an important part of my family's life. As my father used to say, we'd sit at the breakfast table figuring out what we were going to make for dinner. So, and I was on a stool in the kitchen helping my mother make salad dressings and making the salads. And so it's always been important to me. But I think I think France was the aha moment for me too, because you could go and you're shopping in outdoor markets, and you're buying the food, you're seeing it, you're buying it, and then you're going right home and preparing it. And it's just amazing. Sunny is also sharing here that she doesn't have her mom or grandmother's recipes, but she remembers the taste vividly. So she can find the recipe on the internet and then tweak it to taste like theirs. It takes a lot of time and practice, but eventually she can taste her childhood. And that is true. I mean, I don't have a lot of my grandmother's recipes either, but I remember watching her make them. And, you know, it's a lot of trial and error, but it's fun because you have memories while you're going through the trial and error. So, yeah, don't be afraid to take a stab at trying to create your family's recipes. All right, here's a question from Sunny. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I love what Sunny said, that she can taste her childhood.
Yes. So she's asking if there's a website that specifically tells you what plants, herbs, and flowers you can grow in your own hardiness zone. She sees gardening blogs, but it's very confusing. Yeah, and the USDA only lists hardiness zones, so I don't know. I think your best bet would be go through your your own local Department of Agriculture. Excuse me. And if they don't have something on their website, you know, get through and talk to a person on the phone and ask them if they have a resource, and take it from there, because I mean it varies from every Department of Agriculture is going to be your best resource for that.
Excellent. Well, I guess our time pretty much has come to an end. And
hold on, I got a little bit more comments. In the south of France, home cooking is the culture and tradition from our birth, sharing with friends a good meal or picnic well prepared, and choosing good stuff and going to the market of local producers all seasons. I totally agree with that, Florence. And Juan says,
Florence said that?
Yes, Florence said that. And to answer question from Sunny, President Carter's peanut farm does not sell direct to consumer. But I want to, oh wait, Sunny is saying, Rich has not eaten his grandma's meatballs since she died. So I called my neighbor in Hamilton to ask how Italian Americans make meatballs. So, and Juan is saying about the peanut, so we can just have the peanut butter. That is correct, Juan. Georgia exports a lot of peanuts and peanut butter. And for those of you that aren't aware of this, that agriculture is actually the number1 industry in Georgia. And we are not just peaches and peanuts. We have pecans. We're #1 grower in blueberries in the country. We do watermelons, all kinds of melons, peppers, beans, corn. Sweet corn is a big crop here. So we have an incredible bounty, and we have an executive chef program through the Department of Agriculture, where we select 4 to 6 chefs a year to help be ambassadors for Georgia Grown throughout the state and throughout the country. And we were fortunate enough to be invited to cook at the James Beard House in New York. And we were able to go, 5 of us went, and the entire meal, from proteins to produce to wines, beers, spirits, everything was sourced from Georgia. And it really surprised the guests at the dinner that so much was available in Georgia. And the dinner was so successful that we were invited back annually. until the pandemic hit, and now the James Beard House is no longer doing dinners, which is a shame. But it was a great way to promote Georgia to the country and show just exactly how much is available. So if you reach, again, I say, reach out to your local Department of Agriculture and find out what is available in your state or your country, because you might not even be aware of what's available. So, and Sunny is disagreeing with me, saying that Hamilton, New Jersey is the world's blueberry capital. Well, it might be, but Georgia ranks between 1 and 3 in the production of blueberries in the country, and it varies from year to year just depending on weather.
See, I thought it was Maine. When I think
So
of
Hamilton may be the blueberry capital in their own words. Go ahead, Toby.
I was going to say, when I think of blueberries, I think of Maine. I didn't realize that Georgia had so many blueberries.
Yeah, that was news to me also. But I've learned an incredible amount in my past 6 years at the Department of Ag that I was not aware of. So
all these fun little facts that, thanks for sharing. Yeah. Now I want to slice a blueberry pie. What?
To reach out to Toby or me with any questions, or if you have, need any guidance in reaching out to other entities, we'd be happy to help if we can.
Any last words from anybody else? Any last words from you, Holly?
Thank you for this opportunity, and I want to let you all know that Toby and I are available to travel for education, and we'd be happy to share our knowledge of the food industry and social media and whatever else we can do a custom format for whatever your event may be. And thank you, Juan, for your kind words.
And thank you, everybody, for participating. We really appreciate it. And we especially appreciate A Small World and everybody who shared their food pictures with us. They were really a special, special treat. Holly, you were absolutely the right person.
Excellent.
For me to
thank
this
you all very much.
Yeah, sometimes you get it right. And I got it right with you, so thank you. And Sunny, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been an honor participating. And Sunny is saying she's going to see us both in New York City soon.
Yes.
So,
okay.
Sounds like a great idea, Sunny.
Yeah. I guess we're about done.